Okay, it's on.
Yeah, ours is light on.
Okay. Good morning. I'll call the Turf Commission meeting to order for August the 11th with a roll call, please.
Chair Smith.
Here.
Vice Chair Hartung.
Here?
Director Bob Zine. Director Herman.
Here.
Director Abbott. Here. And Director McKenzie. Here. We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. If you'll all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Danielle, would you mind leading us this morning?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comment. I'll open up the public for anybody wishing to speak. I don't have any cards. Anybody in the audience want to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission. Approval of the agenda for August the 11th.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. D, approval, excuse me, approval of the draft minutes of June 9th, 2017 and June 20th, 2017. Any questions or deletions or additions?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. Clippings. Mr. Aldine, announcements and clippings.
One small announcement, had a conversation with the Corps this past week. They are moving forward with the Common Features Project. And for those that do not recognize that term, it is a project element that is in their core federal project and in our 100-year project. As you know, our authorized project is the 50-year project. At any rate, the government can build and actually move forward with project elements in the 50-year plan. So if we can find project features that are common to both project descriptions or both plans, then the Corps can actually start moving forward with that. And to that effect, they have started their agreement process, so we're going to be working with them as closely as possible. The significance of this is that if the federal government starts designing this under construction terms, then we have a started project, and you all know that that word started is extremely important because it commits the federal government to ultimately funding all of the money that they have authorized on the project.
Well, that's a big step for us.
Yes, it is.
Good news, good news.
Yeah, I drug everybody, all staff that had any technical ability down to Sacramento, plus I had our lobbyists and some consultants down there about 3 weeks ago for an update meeting of the review, but this is the best news yet.
Have they identified any common features yet?
Yes, we are working currently on what we call the terracing in the property that we own in the Living River Parkway area, the Mill Rock and McCarran properties. And the terracing is common to both projects, so we can take the material and we have places to put it. We're going to have to work, there's some adjustments we're going to have to make with the property owners and whatnot, and then we have to deal with the, well, all of the property owners there, including us. But yeah, that's the project that we would move forward with. We probably have 3 years, 4 years, probably on the outset. But if we can get, in 3 years, get that started, then that means we've got a started project. And we're home from the government standpoint.
Good stuff. Any questions for Lee? Or for, I'm sorry, I always do that. For Jay? Okay, we'll move on to number 2, discussion and update on the status of the Flood Control Project Needs Committee. Jay?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I sent out an email message to all the members of the committee that have been appointed, indicating that we would be meeting on the 17th of August. I called the meeting. so that we're no longer waiting for the governor, but as an update, in conversations with governor's staff, they have indicated that they will put the group of resumes, that, so to speak, in front of the governor, and he will decide early next week. So that's good news. So we should have a full complement of committee members, at least when we start the first meeting.
Any questions or comments for Jay? It says possible action on this. You just wanted to accept the report? Is that what you wanted to do, Mike? Or do we need to do that?
You don't need any action necessarily, no.
Okay, moving on to number 3. Discussion and update on the demolition of the property at 5205 Mill Street. Eric, you're up there already. Welcome, Eric.
Good morning. I've got good news to bring. By the way, Eric Sheets for the record, engineer. Good news to bring to you again. We have 2 major phases for the XL demolition, if you recall, and the first phase was asbestos abatement. The second phase was obviously the demolition. As of yesterday, we have completed the asbestos abatement. We are within schedule, we're within budget, and in fact, we're looking very well within budget. But the key is we're also opening up the opportunities for training to the emergency personnel. So now that we have the asbestos abatement cleared, we can let them do breach training, which is an opportunity that they don't typically have because they need to deal with asbestos typically. So anyway, that's good news. We also did push out the asbestos abatement a little bit because of 2 reasons. The first reason being that with all the school work being done right now, all the asbestos abatement contractors were quite busy. So it hasn't hurt our critical path. We're still acceptable there. But it allowed the opportunity for the schools to get their work done properly. And then it also gave a little extra time for the emergency personnel to do their inside non-breach training. And so it didn't cost us anything. It was a win-win for everybody. And that's what I'm looking for on this project, is to create win-win situations. So we're moving forward. Everything looks good, and I'll keep updating you as we progress.
Good
Any
stuff,
questions?
Eric. I mean, they use any buildings they can get to train in, so it's nice that we can offer that tonight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Any questions for Eric?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and this
Mr.
will
Hartung.
sound tongue-in-cheek, but it's really not. Do we have any sort of would-be groups that want to be demolitionists, that want to try to blow things up out there and drop it?
I don't, the closest I can get is the emergency personnel. So
Okay.
for instance, SWAT, fire department, the PD
I think it's concrete.
departments.
I don't think it'll burn.
In essence,
Yeah.
in
You'll have
essence,
to get a
that's
bunch
what
of
they're
groups out
doing.
there.
Yeah.
So,
No, I mean, true demolitionists that want that experience, that'll come out and say, yeah, we'd like to just, practice here.
It's not enough stories for that to be impressive.
Yeah.
But
I'd say we don't do that at all.
all right.
Thanks.
looking for a free
All right,
ride,
thank you.
man.
I know. Thanks, Eric. Okay, move on to financial items. Discussion and possible action to approve a license agreement with Truckee Meadows Water Authority for the continued use of portion of Turfma's property at the corner of Mill Street and McCarran. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Walls, General Counsel. Item 4A seeks approval of a license agreement with the Truckee Meadows Water Authority for the continued operation of a water truck filling station. That station is located at the very end of North Edison. It actually sits on our Mill and McCarran parcel, but it's right at the end of that road. That's been in operation since 2008 under a couple of different lease agreements. This new proposed license agreement would provide a monthly fee to us of just over $1,300. That'll be paid quarterly, on a quarterly basis. It's a 5% increase over what was previously paid, and under the terms of that license, it will increase by 5% each year after that. It has a perpetual duration. However, any party can terminate it on 6 months' notice. Now, the use of that property by Tumwa is not exclusive. We are allowed to enter at any time, so long as we don't interfere with what they're doing there, and that's one of the differences between the lease and the license. It gives us some additional access and control over the property. The form and the nature of that agreement was changed in an effort to more completely comply with some provisions of Nevada law. So as Eric said, this is very much a win-win for us and Tumwa. They generate, I think, a pretty good chunk of income for themselves, and that benefits us as well and puts this property to use.
Thank you, Michael. Questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Horton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tumwa owns its own water rights, correct? They're not our water rights.
They're not our water rights, and in fact, they have 2 wells that are on our property,
Okay.
pre-existent, and I believe they're using those. So the actual infrastructure for this water truck filling station, I think they just tapped into their existing line. There's just kind of a standpipe, and they paved a little
Right.
circle, and
Right.
that's it.
I just wanted to get on the record that it's not our water rights.
It is not our water rights.
Good. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, 4B, discussion and possible action to approve an amendment to the agreement for professional engineering services with HDR Engineering.
Again, for the
Is that
record.
you again, Michael?
Yeah. Again, Michael Wolz for the record. Item 4B is an amendment to the agreement for professional engineering services with HDR Engineering. That agreement originally was for the construction phasing study that was done by HDR. I apologize, there's no report available for this. The change to the scope of work was finalized after the book went out. Laura Bear has, I think, provided you with a copy of that agreement, which is just the 1 page. It just does 2 things. It extends the term of the agreement for 1 year and makes some additions to the scope of work. The additions to the scope of work include providing some engineering and coordination for the construction phasing for the federal work that's going to be done. As Jay mentioned, we're going to be working on that common features project, and that will allow them to assist with that. It also allows for updating our 100-year plan, or what we call the local interest plan, in accordance to the comments that were given us by the Corps of Engineers. It's also going to allow them to help provide some support for the Flood Control Project Needs Committee. We're responsible for providing the support for that committee, and so this will allow us, if we need to do some engineering or things as simple as getting maps, it'll allow us to do that. So that's why that scope was expanded. No other terms of that agreement has changed other than that little change to the scope, and the extension, including the total maximum of the contract, remains the same. And there's about $360,000 remaining under that contract.
Michael, are they changing the scope or just adding?
Just adding to the scope.
Okay.
Although I think the work that was done, yeah, that's, Lori updated me on that. So, yes, it's just added to that.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Wolz? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Paul and Vaughn. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, C, we're going to have a discussion, Second Amendment to the accord and satisfaction of the agreement for professional consulting services with Kimley Horn and Associates. It would be Jay.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Jay Aldine, Executive Director, for the record. The board is aware of the original contract with Manhart and that they were to develop a regional hydrologic model. They ran into some problems, and in consultation with the technical staff of the municipal entities, Reno, Sparks, Washoe County, we all agreed that changing to a different model platform would be recommended. The problem was they were going to have to do it without charging any additional money because we'd already paid them the full amount of the contract. At this time, the first amendment was for 6 months. At the time, I recommended 6 months because, one, I wanted to make sure that they would actually start submitting information and give us something and make it worth it, because it's certainly better than the alternative. And second, I thought 6 months would be enough of a warning shot that it might bring them to the table and get them to submit the information, which they have done. They've submitted more than half of the required deliverable. We are in the process of checking that. It hasn't been checked yet, but the model that they're working on is a fairly standard model, and it's one that most engineering consultants could handle without too much difficulty. So they're just doing it at this time without charging us. So I said, fine, I will agree to a second month, a second 6 months, which would have been a full year in the first place that I would have given back in February. And they said that they would get the remaining. In fact, I'm expecting another deliverable submission this month. So we should be close to 75% by that time, but we're about 50% at this time. And they're moving on it, they're working on it. And so I said, if I can stand up and tell the board that you're making progress, then I will recommend 6 more months, but I'm not going to go any further than that. So that's where we are, and they have committed to me to do it, and so that's what you see before you today.
Questions, comments? So to be clear on this, we paid them quite a bit of money, and the model they delivered just didn't work, so they're redoing the model for us. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Mr.
Go ahead, Mr. Hartung.
Thank you. Is it just a piece of software? Is it?
No, actually what it is it's a hydrologic model. It's a model that the communities can use, as well as any private individuals, such as developers, that may want to use it as well. If they want to calculate the impact of a certain piece of property on the whole system, then this model will predict what that flow rate is. And it's a when we say model, the model represents the input. The software is Corps of Engineers software.
Okay, all right.
So the input to the Corps of Engineers software, both of them united, represents the model in this instance.
Is it something akin to, say, Riverware or something like that that the Corps uses? Is it some standardized piece?
That's correct. It's HEC, which is Hydraulic Engineering Center for the Corps, HMS.
I saw that, yeah.
Hydraulic modeling system.
It says conversions to the software.
The conversion was from a core software to a core software. The GESHA, the gridded surface, subsurface hydrology model.
Yeah, I knew that.
Well, I don't think I got it right. So it's for this purpose, it's good enough. That was a core software done out of their Vicksburg office in Mississippi. The HMS model is a core software out of the Davis office in California.
It's the government.
Well, when it comes to working properly, it really makes a difference here. So. But at the end of the day, everybody would like to see this come forward. They want the model. Our communities, our technical staffs want it. It can be used for regional planning. It can look, there's a lot of uses for it. So it's something that when the modeling committee got together and made a recommendation to actually make the change from the original not working model, they said, listen, we'd like to have a product. We don't want to go through and be antagonistic and try to go out and get back our money. That's just not they wanted to see a product. And so that's what they recommended, and we found a way to get a product that would be worthwhile.
Yeah, and I think I can support it based on the fiscal impact. Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
You're within arm's reach.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Monthly report on the authority's financial status and related financial activities. Welcome, Lori.
Good morning. Lori Williams, Senior Financial Analyst. You have in your packet the May financial statements. We're currently auditing the end of the fiscal year, so there's no June at this time. The auditors will be here on Tuesday to get into the audit. But as of May, you'll notice that year-to-date net sales tax revenues are actually over budget, and with the addition of June, we're considerably over budget. Well, I think it's considerably. And the other piece of data I would like to point out, salaries and wages are right on target, and employee benefits are slightly over, but as I've mentioned before, that is a discussion we're having with Washoe County over OPEB costs, and we've worked this past week to get to a resolution on that, so hopefully we'll have that resolved in the not-too-distant future.
Are they saying we owe more?
No.
Okay.
Well, actually, they have withheld more than we believe is actually appropriate, so we're working through that, and
Okay.
we'll have an answer in a few weeks, hopefully.
thank you.
But these are the financial statements for May. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions or comments for Lori? Okay, looking for motion to accept the report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to E, review of monthly encumbrance report.
At a past board meeting, we had a request for a comprehensive report of our contracts and agreements, and this is a bit of paperwork that we put together each month. It's a reconciliation of our encumbrances, so we've put it into a format that we hope is meeting the needs of the board. At the first page and on through the second page, about halfway through, those are the encumbrances that are represented by purchase orders. Beneath that, we have other agreements, which are items that we do not have on purchase orders because they're pending action, future action. So I offer this in response to the request we had for this type of a report, and if you have any suggestions on how we can improve it for your needs, just let me know.
I'm not sure who asked for the report. Is this what you're looking for, whoever, who did ask for the report?
Mr. Chair, for the record, Jay Aldine, it was Board Member Hartung. And my question will be, this can be modified to suit your needs and to answer your questions, and that's what it's for. It's an information providing deal. But let me suggest, this is as of May 31st. If you look down at the HDR contract, it showed $415,000, but as it was updated, Mr. Walls gave you the correct updated number. So we are back a month or two.
Right,
But
this is
at
just,
least it gives
this
you the idea
just
of
matches the financials.
where we are
Okay.
and what's going on and what we're doing.
Right, now this is, yeah, the breakdown. So we're, if I may, Mr. Chair, we're
ahead.
still paying for landscaping services for Excel even though we're tearing it down?
It's an ongoing contract that we had during the fiscal year. It runs through October.
Yeah.
Now, once the building is down, we're not obligated to continue that. We just give
Good.
them the 30 days notice and it'll be terminated.
I will mention, we do have trees on that site, and there may be some reasons to keep them alive.
Oh,
And so
right,
there still could be some things that we may want to deal with there. We will recommend to the board when we get to that point.
I'm betting the trees that are on that site are fairly large and don't require watering. They're probably down into the groundwater base from the river, so, but I understand, they may need to be trimmed and kept safe and
Once
tidy.
the demolition is complete, then we'll evaluate the need and proceed with
Yeah,
any
it's
kind
de
of
minimis. The
additional
amount
service we
is
may
de
need
minimis. It's
on a
just,
regular basis.
yeah, I understand.
Okay, any
Great.
other questions, comments? See none, looking for
Motion to accept?
a motion, Mr. Hartung and Mr. Abbott. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori. We'll move on to number 5, board member comments. I'm looking around, anybody?
Mr. Chair, Jay Aldine for the record, your administrative individual, loyal administrative individual mentioned to me, what about the press conference that's going to occur before? I do know that when I sent the announcement to the committee that I did copy this whole board to be aware of that press conference, and I believe that Mr. Walls is planning on filing a quorum notice public meeting in case any of you should decide to show up at that press conference. The press conference is really meant to introduce the members of the committee and tell the public, hey, these are good guys because they're working on your behalf, and try to get some good positive press there. But just wanted to mention that will occur at 9 o'clock at Tumwa on Thursday.
And I had that on my list to ask, because I can be there now. I wasn't going to be there, but I can make it.
So, and I do have a question on that committee, if I
Go
may,
ahead.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Wolz, is there any issue with us periodically meeting with members as long as there's not a quorum of either this or that board?
Yeah, so long as there's a quorum, that's not a problem. Now, you do need to be aware of what they refer to as the walking quorum.
Right.
Which I'm sure that you're all familiar with, but so you don't
Yeah,
want to.
we call that a serial meeting.
Or a serial meeting, exactly. You know, and just by way of, so, no, that isn't a problem. As we move forward with these meetings, it's my intention that I will be posting agendas for this board in conjunction with that, just in case a quorum of this board wants to appear at any of these events.
Sure.
So we'll just keep that as a matter of practice unless it appears that we're just consistently not getting anybody. But we will do our best to accommodate participation by all of you.
And my hope is that they'll come up with some well-balanced solution. So it's not any one particular solution to say, you know, the Washington County School District said, okay, we need sales tax. And so what I'm hoping is that there'll be a well-balanced solution, and I would certainly like to meet with some of the members of the board. I mean, I think most of us know most of them, not all, but, you know, just periodically to see what, you know, kind of what the feel is, and you know, get some feedback about the dynamics of the board itself. It should be an interesting discussion.
Absolutely. Just, you know, for math purposes, that committee is made up of 16 members, 2 of whom are non-voting. So a voting quorum is 8.
Right.
So as you're doing math in your head, be aware of that.
But is that a requirement, or is it members present?
That's a different issue. It's for voting purposes. So you could have, if you have 8 present, you can hold, 8 present.
Yes.
You can hold a meeting.
Right.
And then it's a simple majority.
It's a simple, that's
And
what
it's
I
a
mean.
little different
Right.
than the open meeting law.
Right.
In that it doesn't have to be, they don't have to have a majority of vote of all members, it's just those present. So they could pass, they could pass something with 5 votes under
Will
the
they-
right circumstances.
Good. They won't be under the same caveat and rule that we have, where it's a unanimous vote or it dies.
That's exactly right, yes.
Good.
And they're also free, you know, with the various councils and commissions that you sit on under the open meeting law. Even if you have a quorum there, it still has to be a vote by the majority of all members of the body.
Will
And that doesn't apply in this case.
will that caveat, I mean, can they choose to force a unanimous vote themselves?
No, the statute establishes that, and I
statute
don't
is
think they have,
established.
it would
That's
be
good.
my
All
opinion
right.
that they don't have the
Good.
authority to override
Good.
that.
Good. That's good. Those are my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Would you clarify this for me? He asked if he can meet separately with the committee members. Is that right?
Yeah,
Vaughn?
yeah, just, you know, have
Yeah,
lunch
could
with
Vaughn call
one or
some,
two.
for example, could he just call someone that's on the committee and have a conversation
Yeah,
with
right.
them?
I just don't want us to get in trouble with trying to influence what they're doing. We
No, no, no,
we
no,
should
no,
be
no,
there
no,
for
no, no.
questions at their meetings and stuff like that. So
No,
I
it's not.
just think
it's
we need
not
to be
in-
careful about
It's not
that.
influencing what they're doing, but, you know, the question, I mean, you know, they've got people who are, I mean, we talk with Mike Kazmersky all the time. I talk to Trey Abney fairly frequently. You know, there's a lot of people on here that we deal with fairly frequently, so.
I'm in no position to say you can't do that. I'm just saying we got to be careful of what we do talk about. I think if they say they're getting undue influence from the board, that could be a problem for us down the road.
Right, you know, I can advise you on what's legal. What's politic is a different question.
Yeah.
And certainly would be, you know, something for you to discuss in a meeting such as this as to what you think is appropriate. But
Okay.
just as far as the legality, the open meeting law would not.
Yeah,
restrict
no, the
that.
intent is not to influence them, but to just get a feel for the dynamics of the board and,
Okay.
and you know, I mean, the desire is to come up with some innovative solutions that the voting public will accept.
Well, we all know sales tax is off the,
It's going to be
it's
off
off
the
the
table. Yeah.
table, yeah, so. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none and without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you so much. Oh, wait. Oh, public comment, I'm sorry. I take that back. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the committee, and without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.